Okay, let's go back to trapping. So the last thing we were learning yesterday was about a bird cage. Now a bird is normally an animal that needs to be caught because it flies around all over the place. So if you own a bird, so you're allowed to feed it. Obviously you have an obligation to feed it on Shabbos. A bird, by the way, a bird that doesn't belong to you, you're not allowed to feed on Shabbos. So let's say you're not allowed to, if you have leftover challah Friday night, you're not allowed to put it out for the birds on Shabbos because you're not allowed to feed a bird that doesn't belong, or any animal for that matter, except a dog, that doesn't belong to you on Shabbos.
Except the dog?
Dog, because of the Schar and Mitzrayim. Okay, but those are not the dinim now. But a bird, so if you have a bird is in a cage, you can't close the door. Or you can't open up the door and get the bird to fly into the cage and then, close up the cage, because then he's confined in a small area. If it's a big room, let's say a bird comes into this room, or even much smaller room, but then you close the door, so it's, even though the bird is now trapped, but it's not really trapped, because if you want to get it, you're still going to have to trap it. So it's not considered trapped yet. If it's a small area that's very easy to trap the bird, so then it's not an issue. Another interesting thing with this is, even though most halachos, like we learned, they're like the positive and the negative. Like you're not allowed to sew, but you're not allowed to tear with the intent of sewing. But even if you tear without the intent of sewing, it's still rabbinically forbidden. So the question now is, can I free a bird that was trapped? Or if there's a fly that was trapped, am I allowed to let it loose? Open the window and let it go out, or things like that. So there is an opinion, halacha, that says you can, but everybody disagrees with that. And they say, the bottom line is, halacha doesn't say you can't untrap a bird with the intent of trapping it. I mean, it doesn't. So therefore, if a bird, the Rebbe says this, if a deer is locked in a room, you're allowed to open up the door and let the deer go out. You're not trapping it. On the contrary, you're letting it go loose. But even though a lot of halachos, like erasing, is connected to writing. You're not allowed to erase. You're not allowed to erase. You're not allowed to sew. You're not allowed to rip. All those types of things. You're not allowed to destroy, but it's connected to building. But here it doesn't work like that. So even an animal that's trapped, you're allowed to free it.
There's no problem with trapping.
Huh?
Why would you think there's a problem with trapping?
Trapping, there is.
No, it's like to release them.
There are opinions in halacha that say you're not allowed to. Because just because, I don't know what their source is, but they're right, just like there's writing in this, what?
Does the pikuach nefesh apply to non-human? Does pikuach nefesh apply to animals?
You mean, can you desecrate Shabbos to save a life of an animal? That's what you're asking?
Right.
No.
It's an extreme situation, but in a situation like this.
No. You're not allowed to desecrate Shabbos to save a life of an animal.
You're allowed to free yourself.
Even a non-Jew is a whole issue in halacha about saving a life of a non-Jew on Shabbos. But then say animals for sure not. In other words, if you have a lady once called me, she called me a Saturday night and she says she was crying, her dog was dying and he was very sick, or she was very sick, and she had to drive it, a frum lady, she had to drive him to the vet on Shabbos, and it was because it was pikuach nefesh, it was saving the life, and anyway, I told her that basically you're not allowed to, it was too late, she did it. But that's clear in halacha, you're not allowed to save a life of an animal. What you're allowed to do, halachically, you're allowed to do certain things on Shabbos, even though you wouldn't be allowed to alleviate the pain of an animal. In other words, normally, I'll give you an example. Milking a cow technically would be forbidden on Shabbos, because it's the malacha of threshing or schita that you're taking out something which was absorbed, like in the fruit, right? You have an orange, you can't squeeze it, or biblically grapes and olives. So halachically, technically, you wouldn't be allowed to milk a cow on Shabbos. Milking a cow is really the malacha of dash. But it's not biblical dash, it's rabbinic dash. So therefore the Chacham say, if a cow is in pain, because it has to be milked, otherwise it's in pain, so you're allowed to milk a cow on Shabbos. But you can't use the milk. You have to spill it out right away. Spill it out right away, or halacha really says even more. You're supposed to put dirt at the bottom of the container where the milk comes into, that for sure you wouldn't be able to use it. You understand? But even to help an animal give birth on Shabbos, you're allowed to indirectly help the animal, because it's really desecration of Shabbos. But you can't desecrate Shabbos, biblical law to desecrate Shabbos for the sake of an animal. What?
What if you're somewhere deserted and you've got a cow, and your cow is your food?
For Shabbos?
On Shabbos, can you save it so that
No.
Shabbos and Sunday?
You can't desecrate Shabbos for after Shabbos. You can desecrate Shabbos for saving a life on Shabbos. You can't desecrate Shabbos to save a life 3 days later.
It's going to be Pikuach Nefesh.
It's not Pikuach Nefesh for you at the present. You're not starving to death. No, you wouldn't be allowed to. I mean, bottom line is you wouldn't be allowed to. Anyway, but then you have another issue, and this coming into the next halacha of Shechita, what's connected. The Rambam says, and there's a whole controversial issue in modern day medical science. The Rambam says that there's certain bugs that come from the garbage, or lice, that don't come from a male and female. So therefore, killing them on Shabbos, not all animals, any animal that doesn't, or bug, that doesn't come from a male and female, you're allowed to kill it on Shabbos. Trapping wouldn't apply either. So in fact, Alter Rebbe brings down in Shulchan Aruch that a kina, a lice, that it's created from the hair, it's not from a male and female, whatever. And science, medical science, is not true, everything comes from Zohar Nekeva, and whatever. But in Torah law, it says, the Rambam says it, that certain things grow from the garbage, they don't come from a male or female. I'm just saying, but the animals that don't come from male and female is not a problem killing them on Shabbos, because it's not even called so to speak, a living entity.
Worms come from the same.
Okay, whatever. I'm saying those things that are... Okay, that's as far as trapping goes. But just it brings out over here also that you can spray on yourself insect repellent, because all it does is repel. It just keeps the mosquitoes away. It doesn't kill the mosquitoes. But you can't kill... okay, that's the next malacha. Next malacha is also very practical, even though you might think of it's not, and that's shechita. Now, again, what was done in the Mishkan, not on a daily basis, what was done in the construction of the Mishkan and getting the Mishkan ready, so they had to slaughter those animals that they needed the skins, the hides, to cover the Mishkan, the Urias. So one of the things they did in the Beis Hamikdash, in the Mishkan, was shechita. They slaughtered animals. So the definition of shechita is taking the life of any creature, whether it's bird, fish, reptile, wild, domestic, even killing the smallest insect. If it's a male and a female, then it's called killing on Shabbos. It's biblically forbidden to kill. So what?
Can you grab a grasshopper in here and eat it?
First of all, you're trapping. Secondly, you're killing. Thirdly, how do you know it's the kosher grasshopper?
No, you know.
You know. The group. They have a hechsher on it, the OU on the grasshopper. So you know. Anyway, the bottom line, you couldn't trap it, number one, you're trapping, number two, you're killing. Taking a fish out, we'll sing that there, but even taking a fish out of water, you're killing the fish. But not only that, it's an interesting thing. The Rambam writes in the laws of kosher foods, the Rambam writes, animals need to have shechita. Okay? Fish, there's no mitzvah of shechita in the Torah for a fish. But the Rambam says, the taking out from the water, that is the shechita for a fish. It's a very interesting concept. The Rambam doesn't say fish don't need shechita. They don't need to be slaughtered. The Rambam says, taking it, the netilasim and amayim, taking it out of the water, that is the shechita of the fish. So okay, we'll see that. Okay, so biblically, when you kill a creature only if you want to use it. What it was done in the Mishkan. They killed the animals, they shechted those animals because they needed the animal for the hides. So biblically, it's only forbidden if you're using it, you're killing the animal because you want to use the hide. What happened if you're killing it for no particular reason? It's still biblically forbidden. But for instance, let's say you want to do hunting for sport, that would also be beneficial to you, so it would be biblical. What?
Say in a household you have a bowl of water with some goldfish in it. Accidentally, a child poured some chemicals that could kill the fish. Are you allowed to grab the fish, change the water, put new water, and put the fish in there on Shabbat?
The problem is fish are muktzah. Any animal is muktzah. You can have a guy do it, that's for sure. Not really, halacha. Huh? You can have a guy do it, but a Jew wouldn't be, it's a muktzah, you still can't do it. I mean,
You can drain it without touching the fish. You can drain it and refill it.
how are you going to drain it?
You halachic.
Muktzah, you could do kalachayad. I mean, how are you going to, I'm just trying to, if this is not a fish tank, an aquarium, a little, thank you, a little fish tank, yeah? A fish bowl the kids bring home from schools. What? Pick it up. No, but picking it up like this is like this. What? It's not keli shemlachta, listen.
The fish, a muksa.
Not keli, but they're totally muksa.
Totally muksa, even kalachayad.
No, kalachayad has nothing to do. Muksa, you can move kalachayad. The only question is, kalachayad, if it's for the sake of the muksa, not. If it's not for the sake of the muksa, you could. But again, you could.
This is for the sake of the muksa. This is for the sake of the fish.
If you're moving it for the sake of the fish, so it depends how you could do it. Some kalachayad you would be able to do, like not with your hands. If you move muksa, any muksa you can move with your foot or with your elbow. In fact, real muksa you're allowed to move. Only with your hand kalachayad, like the back of your hand, which is not the normal way of doing it. So then, in Shinches, the Alter Rebbe says, or Shchunoch says, if it's for the benefit of the muksa, no. If it's not for the benefit of the muksa, you could. But if somebody is going to, with the elbows, that's not kalachiyat. Save the fish. I mean, you can't save a fish. You can't transgress Shabbos to save a fish. And again, what you may be able to do is siphon out the water, then you're not moving the fish, right? So you're siphoning out the water. You can't use an electric pump, but let's say, and then, that stuff, if it's feasible, scientifically, medically, normal, possible, to technically, hypothetically, to empty, siphon out the water, simultaneously you're filling up more water, that would you'll be able to do.
Just keep adding water, add water.
Or you could just keep adding water until but then you'll flood your house, no? Then you'll have a flood in the house and have a shalom bayis issue. Might be a worse issue. What? Okay.
Next topic.
Now, removing fish water, we said. But by the way, it doesn't only mean, now biblically, it's only when you actually take out blood, for instance, that's going to kill it. What happens if you take out blood that won't kill it? So then it's still rabbinically forbidden. What?
Talk about Chaim in terms of Eber Malachai for Shabbat. If you kill, the way they cook seafood is they cook it while it's alive.
Right. No.
So they're not doing Eber Malachai. They're not taking an Eber. That's how they're killing it. Is that a humane way of killing the animal?
But Ever Menachai, okay, the 7 mitzvahs B'nai Noach are really 30-something mitzvahs. Okay? Because there's a lot of offshoots of 7 mitzvahs B'nai Noach. One of the offshoots of Ever Menachai, I won't get into it now, is Tzar Balei Chaim. So Goyim are also obligated in Tzar Balei Chaim.
That's not okay.
So that wouldn't be okay. Then it wouldn't be okay in that case for them to do it. Dann an der Kasche mit das Woche sagt so wie